Nothing in this world tastes like Madame Pepper's spicy pepper soup. Welcome to Talking African Tales, home of beautiful African stories. Madame Pepper was known for one thing, her pepper soup. It was the best anyone had ever tasted. If you haven't eaten Madame Pepper's soup, you haven't eaten pepper soup at all. The soup was rich and spicy, with tender meat floating in red broth. The aroma alone could stop people on the road. Once you tasted it, you never forgot it. People came from far and near just to eat Madame Pepper's pepper soup. Some traveled from other towns. Some came very early in the morning to secure their food. Before other food vendors could sell half of their pots, Madame Pepper's soup was already finished. Some people used to gossip about her soup. They said her food was not ordinary. Others said she used special ingredients no one knew about, but no one had proof. Because of how popular her food was, people gave it a nickname. They called it Celebrity Pepper Soup. Madame Pepper didn't talk much. She focused on her business. She respected her customers. She smiled and served them well. Her food business made her very rich. For more than 8 years, she cooked and sold pepper soup every day. Her customers were loyal. They trusted her food. Life was good. But everything started changing the day Cynthia came into the picture. Cynthia was a retired slay queen. She had lived that life for many years. Designer bags, expensive weaves, club nights, and different men. But she was tired now. Her body was weak. The money had dried up. The men had moved on to younger girls. Cynthia needed a new way to survive. She remembered her old friend, Madame Pepper. They had been close years ago before Cynthia got into the slay queen lifestyle. Cynthia decided to visit her. When Cynthia arrived, Madame Pepper welcomed her with open arms. "My friend." Madame Pepper hugged her. "It's been so long." "I know," Cynthia said. "Things are hard for me now. I need somewhere to stay." Madame Pepper didn't hesitate. "You can stay with me," she said. "I have an extra room in my house." Cynthia moved in. They lived in the same house but in different rooms. At first, Cynthia was grateful. She helped Madame Pepper around the house. But every day, she watched her friend's business booming. Customers lined up. Money exchanged hands. Laughter filled the shop. Meanwhile, Cynthia had nothing. No business. No income. No future. Jealousy began to grow in her heart like a weed. One evening, Cynthia sat in her room thinking deeply. "How can we be living in the same house?" she said to herself. "My friend's business is moving forward, but I have nothing." She shook her head. "I don't think her food is ordinary. I must find out what she is putting in her pepper soup." But after watching Madame Pepper cook for days, Cynthia saw nothing strange. No powder, no charm, no secret. Madame Pepper cooked like a normal woman. That's when Cynthia made a decision. "If I can't find a secret," she thought, "then I will start my own business too." 2 weeks later, Cynthia started her own pepper soup business. She set up a small store not far from Madame Pepper's shop. She cooked pepper soup. She tried to copy Madame Pepper's style. She used the same spices. She followed everything she could see. But something was missing. The taste was not the same. Customers did not come. Some days she sold to one person. Some days no one came at all. Cynthia would sit in her shop all day watching people walk past her place and go straight to Madame Pepper's stand. One evening, Cynthia sat alone, fuming. "This is not fair," she muttered. "We're cooking the same food, living in the same house, but people come from far and wide to eat her food." She clenched her fists. "I don't think her food is ordinary. I must destroy her business." And that was when Cynthia made a decision that would change everything. At night, when the whole area was quiet and people were asleep, Cynthia would stand outside, watching Madame Pepper's shop. She believed Madame Pepper would do something strange. Maybe say some words, maybe drop something on the ground, maybe perform some dark ritual. But Madame Pepper never did anything suspicious. Night after night, Cynthia waited. Nothing happened. After many days, Cynthia became frustrated. "There's nothing special," she said to herself. "But this business is still not ordinary." That was when another thought entered her mind. "If I can't find a secret, then I will destroy her business. She can't be the only one flourishing." One morning, Madame Pepper was cooking as usual. Her big pot of pepper soup was on fire. The aroma was already spreading. At some point, Madam Pepper went inside to bring more ingredients. That moment was all Cynthia needed. She had been waiting. As soon as Madam Pepper went inside, Cynthia ran quickly to the pot. She looked around. No one was watching. She brought out a small white powder from her pocket and poured it into the pepper soup. Then she ran back like nothing happened. Madam Pepper came back, added her ingredients, stirred the soup, and continued cooking. She didn't notice anything. Please click and subscribe if you haven't. That day, something strange happened. Madam Pepper's food finished very fast, even faster than usual. In less than 30 minutes, everything was gone. Many of her customers were still hungry. They waited, but there was no more food. So they did something they had never done before. They went to Cynthia's shop. That day was different for Cynthia. Customers filled her place. She was shocked. She served them with a wide smile. Finally, she said to herself, "My plan has worked." People ate. They drank water. They thanked her. Cynthia felt proud. But not long after, shouting started. One person held his stomach. Another ran past her shop. Another shouted for help. My stomach. I need toilet." People started running in different directions, holding their stomachs. Some were crying. Some were begging for water. Some were already squatting behind buildings. Cynthia stood there confused. She didn't understand. Why is this happening? She asked herself. Why me? Why not Madam Pepper? By evening, the whole area had heard the story. The next day, people were warning each other. Don't buy food from Cynthia. Her food will make you sleep in the toilet. From that day, Cynthia's stall became dry again. No customers, no greetings, no sales. But Madam Pepper's shop? It kept booming. Even new customers started coming. People who heard the story wanted to see for themselves. Cynthia stayed home the next day, confused and ashamed. She kept asking herself one question: how can Madam Pepper not be a witch? The more Cynthia thought about it, the angrier she became. One morning, she made up her mind. If I can't fight her from outside, then I will fight from inside. That same day, Cynthia went to Madam Pepper with a plan. She bent down and greeted her politely. Please, Cynthia said. Things are very hard for me now. My food business has failed. I have no money. Let me help you. I can wash plates. I can serve customers. I can clean. I will do anything. Madam Pepper looked at her quietly. I have been running this business alone for 8 years because I don't want problems. I love my peace. I will not cause any problem. I promise, Cynthia quickly replied. After thinking for a while, Madam Pepper agreed. Okay, you can help me. Cynthia was happy inside. She started working with Madam Pepper. She washed plates. She served customers. She cleaned the shop. And all the while, she watched. Days passed. Weeks passed. Cynthia saw nothing strange. No powder, no charm, no secret. Madam Pepper cooked like a normal woman. Yet the food kept selling. Cynthia became more confused. Since she couldn't find anything, she tried another way. She started moving around telling people stories. Be careful of Madam Pepper's food, she told them. It is not ordinary. That's why once you eat it, you can't stop going back. Some people believed her. Some ignored her. Some asked questions. If her food is bad, why are you still helping her sell it? Cynthia would quickly change the topic. For 2 days, Madam Pepper noticed fewer customers because of the lies Cynthia had spread. But on the 3rd day, something strange happened. The customers tripled. The shop was full. People were standing. Some were even helping Cynthia wash plates so they could be served faster. Madam Pepper had to increase the quantity of soup she cooked. Cynthia stood there in shock. Instead of falling, the business grew bigger. That night, Cynthia went to see a native doctor. She told him everything she wanted. She also asked for a charm for her own business. The native doctor listened and gave her what she asked for. He handed her a big white cloth and the charm. Cynthia held it tightly and went back home. She could not wait for morning. The next day, very early, Madam Pepper was cooking as usual. Cynthia walked to her and said, Madam, one customer is calling for you outside. Madam Pepper wiped her hands and went outside. As soon as she left, Cynthia acted fast. She brought out the white cloth the native doctor had given her and pushed it deep inside the pot of Pepper's soup. She made sure it went under. Minutes later, Madam Pepper returned. There was nobody there, she said. Cynthia shrugged. Maybe the person left, she replied. When the food was ready, Madam Pepper started serving. Suddenly, Cynthia came back with some angry men. She stood before everyone and shouted, "This food is not ordinary. Madam Pepper cooks with dirty cloth." Everyone stopped eating and covered their mouths in shock. Madam Pepper was shocked too. She looked at Cynthia in disbelief. "If you don't believe me," Cynthia shouted, "check the pot." The angry men poured the pepper soup into a big tray. They searched. They searched again. There was no cloth. Nothing. The people became ashamed. They apologized to Madam Pepper. "Please forgive us. We will never listen to her again." They warned Cynthia and left. Cynthia stood there shaking. She knew one thing for sure. She had put that cloth inside the pot herself. So how did it disappear? And for the first time, Cynthia began to fear Madam Pepper more than she hated her. After the cloth incident, Cynthia didn't stop. Her heart was still full of jealousy. She wanted Madam Pepper to fall so that her own business could finally shine. Cynthia waited for 2 weeks. She allowed the tension to calm down. Then she reopened her shop. This time her food was not ordinary. She added the charm the native doctor had given her. Slowly she began to get customers. Not many, but small people came. Some customers who used to eat Madam Pepper's food now shared between both shops. But Madam Pepper's shop was still full. Always busy. Always noisy. Cynthia was still not satisfied. One afternoon, Cynthia stood in her shop alone. No customers. Her pots were full. Across the road, Madam Pepper's shop was crowded as usual. People were laughing. Plates were clashing. Money was exchanging hands. Cynthia watched with anger. A dangerous thought entered her mind. If I cannot have as many customers as her, I will make sure Madam Pepper never cooks again. The next day, Cynthia went back to the native doctor. She said to him clearly, "I want you to paralyze Madam Pepper's hands so she will never be able to cook again." The native doctor became serious. He shook his head. "I cannot do that. That woman has a pure and innocent heart. If I try this, it will return back to you." Cynthia shouted, "I don't care. Do it." The native doctor warned her again. "The consequence will be heavy. Heavier than what you imagine." Cynthia brought out more money. "Do it." After a long silence, the native doctor agreed. He performed the incantation. Cynthia left smiling. The next morning, Cynthia woke up happy. Her plan for the day was simple. She would pass by Madam Pepper's shop and see people crying and pitying her. But as Cynthia tried to sit up from her bed, she couldn't move her hands. They were numb. She tried again. Nothing. Fear entered her heart. She forced herself to stand. Her hands were shaking. With great struggle, she used her leg to drag her phone closer and called the native doctor. Crying, she told him everything. The native doctor sighed. "I warned you. There is nothing I can do. The only solution is for you to go and beg Madam Pepper." Cynthia screamed. She cried like a child. 2 days passed. Her hands started rotting. The pain was unbearable. Cynthia struggled to Madam Pepper's house. She knelt down in the living room where they both lived. Cynthia confessed everything. She told Madam Pepper how she poisoned her food, how she lied, how she went to the native doctor, how she wanted to destroy her. Madam Pepper listened quietly. Then she spoke calmly. "I have lived all my life without doing evil to anyone. That has been my protection. When I was young, my father was a traditionalist. Before he died, he blessed me." She paused. "He told me to live a clean life, to harm no one, and no harm would come to me. He said, anyone who tries to do evil to you while your hands are clean, the evil will return to them." Madam Pepper looked at Cynthia with sad eyes. "I forgive you, Cynthia. I leave everything in God's hands. But you must move out of my house. I cannot live with someone who wanted to destroy me." Cynthia nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand." 1 week later, her hands healed completely. Cynthia packed her things. Ashamed, broken, quiet. But she had nowhere to go. No money. No friends. No family who would take her in. Angry and desperate, Cynthia went back to the native doctor's house. She was furious. "You did this to me," she shouted at him. "You told me it would work. Now I have lost everything." The native doctor sat calmly, watching her rage. "You ruined my life." Cynthia screamed. "I have nowhere to go. I have nothing. This is all your fault." The native doctor smiled a strange smile. He stood up slowly and walked toward her. "You came to me for evil," he said quietly. "Now you come to insult me." He raised his hand and muttered something under his breath. Cynthia felt something shift inside her. Her anger melted away. She looked at the native doctor, and suddenly, he was the most handsome man she had ever seen. Her heart began to beat faster. She felt drawn to him. She couldn't explain it. I'm sorry," she stammered, her voice suddenly soft. "I didn't mean to shout." The native doctor smiled. "Stay," he said, and Cynthia stayed. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Cynthia couldn't leave. She didn't want to leave. She was in love, or so she thought. She cooked for him. She cleaned for him. She did everything he asked. Before long, Cynthia was pregnant. She gave birth to her first child. Then, before she could recover, she was pregnant again. 2 children. 2 years. And still, she couldn't leave. One night, Cynthia woke up. The fog in her mind had lifted. She looked around the small, dark room. She looked at the native doctor sleeping beside her. She looked at her 2 children. Horror washed over her. "What have I done?" she whispered. She remembered everything. The juju. The spell. The love that wasn't real. Tears streamed down her face. She had wasted years of her life. She had 2 children with a man she didn't truly love. A man who had trapped her with magic. Cynthia cried and cried. But it was too late already. The next night, when everyone was asleep, Cynthia made a decision. She packed a small bag. She looked at her 2 children sleeping peacefully. Her heart broke. But she couldn't stay. She couldn't live this life anymore. Quietly, Cynthia slipped out of the house. She ran into the night and never looked back. Nobody ever heard from her again. Meanwhile, Madame Pepper continued her business. Her pepper soup kept selling, just as sweet and spicy as ever. Her hands remained clean. Her heart remained pure, and that was how jealousy destroyed a life. But a pure heart won. The end. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more beautiful stories.